I'm Tamara Zach, and welcome to my series, Wisdom of the Goddess for Modern Women. Today we're going to start with an overview of Maureen Murdoch's heroine's journey, and we're going to be using The Wizard of Oz and Dorothy's story. It's a uniquely feminine female story where the main character is female and it's her concerns that drive the story. It's not about romantic love. There's no romance. There's no man that Dorothy's trying to obtain. She is on her own adventure and calling on her own resources and challenging herself and learning that all of this achievement and depending on external authority figures is not needed. She has what she needs. And so it's a very uniquely feminine story. And we're going to start there to help orient throughout the series when we bring in the ancient goddesses. Because this is a modern myth, this story of the Wizard of Oz. And it's just a familiar tale, helping to make sense of more of the ancient stories. And so I'll be referencing Dorothy's story throughout when we hit each stage and talk about the goddess. So this is a lot of integration for Dorothy and understanding that she's whole and she has everything she needs, and being aware that she doesn't need to look externally, that internally she's enough. And this is how I work with clients. I use a combination of internal family systems and the Enneagram to really help clients heal and understand that about themselves. Why do they do the things they do? What's happening? What are the parts concerned about? What needs to be healed? And I often work with clients that are in transition phases of their life, women and men, moving into parenthood or divorce, infidelity recovery, or midlife stage with empty nest, and major career changes. All of these things can track to the heroine's journey, and it can be very resonant for men too in this modern world. And so I invite you to learn more about working with me. Listen, like, and subscribe today to what I'm presenting on the heroine's journey, and take a look and see how I work and what I'm about in the notes for today's video. And let me know if you have questions or comments about what I'm sharing today. But let's get back to Dorothy. So there she is in Kansas. And we start with a real separation of feminine. That's where the heroine's journey starts, that women have to push away from the patriarchal roles that are laid out and really separate and move out of that space inside in order to identify with the masculine and move out into a very masculine world of achievement and getting degrees and getting that big job and getting all the things, houses, cars, all that stuff that we're told, and especially in the US, that this is the focus and goals of life. And so Dorothy starts there when Toto gets in trouble, and now Mrs. Gulch wants to, punish Toto, and Dorothy wants to protect that and has all of these concerns and runs to Auntie M and her uncle, and how can we save Toto, and let's fight against Mrs. Gulch. And she's not getting much support there, and she tries to push against Mrs. Gulch, and there's nothing. Mrs. Gulch is unrelenting. And so Toto, right, really represents that instinctual female, and Toto and Dorothy kind of represent the feminine in the story. And so Auntie M expresses to Dorothy, stay out of trouble, get out of the way, and go find something to do. And this starts this wonderful song that Judy Garland sang so beautifully with such longing, who played the part of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. she sang this gorgeous song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which I loved as a child. I loved this really uniquely feminine story that I was seeing a little girl on screen having all these adventures and identifying with her. And then I loved Judy Garland. As a little kid, I was an old movie buff, and I loved Abbott and Costello and Martin and Lewis. And there were only 3 channels. There was only so much you could watch, and you had to watch what was on. And so I loved all of that. And so Judy Garland starts to sing this song, and the opening lines, I want to go somewhere over the rainbow where there's no trouble, right? Where I'm accepted is essentially what she's talking about, right? And then here comes the tornado. And the tornado is really that initiation, taking her to Oz, whether she likes it or not, right? She'd set off on her own to run away, but that wasn't a good idea. And the tornado just takes care of that, takes her off to Oz. Here she arrives in this technicolor world of Oz and immediately lands on the Wicked Witch of the East and destroys her. And again, all the symbolism, separation of feminine. And so she obtains the ruby slippers, and Glinda arrives, mentoring her, this very positive feminine aspect that was feeling not available at home. And she is encouraged by Glinda to take the ruby slippers and get on the yellow brick road. And before that happens, the Wicked Witch of the West arrives and demands the slippers. And you could look at the slippers as a bit of representative of women's sexuality. The ruby slippers, it's a full integration of everything that feminine for Dorothy. And so Wicked Witch arrives, threatens, and Glinda says, get away, again, mentoring, and sets Dorothy on the path. And I love in the movie that they used a spiral to start her on, to make her way on the yellow brick road, because a feminine female story is always going to be nonlinear and not follow ABC. So I really love that the movie represented that. And so off she goes, and now she's in the identifying with masculine and gathering allies, and she's on the road of trials. And she needs the allies to help her with the road of trials. So this is, where women, right? We're headed out into the work world. We're gathering degrees. We're getting that good job, right? We're getting out into the man's world. And so the allies she gathers are all male, and you can look at them as aspects of Dorothy's masculine. So Carl Jung talked about women need to integrate what he called the animus, which is the masculine aspects of their psyche, and men need to do that for the feminine, which Carl Jung called the anima. And this is how a person becomes whole. And so here's Dorothy running into the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion, all representing different aspects of the masculine. The Scarecrow, cool intellect. He was often very encouraging. Get out there, get out in the world, do it. And the Tin Man, who was nurturing and follow your heart and trust yourself. And the Cowardly Lion, about courage and strength and not domination. And so they all represented different aspects of the masculine and the female psyche. And so she arrives in Oz with her companions, and there's a bit of, when they're in the field of poppies and her and the lion fall asleep, there's a bit of symbolism about ego death, because part of the descent is that the ego needs to die in order to become whole, and that's foreshadowed in the poppy field. And off they are into Oz, and now here becomes the stage Maureen Murdoch calls the illusory boon of success, and this kind of, is this it? Feeling empty and not fulfilled. And so that all happens as they meet the Oz and discover he's a fraud, and he sets them on a path at that point to gather the witch's broom. They still need to prove themselves to this external authority to get what they want, which is what they already have. They just don't know it yet. And so now begins Dorothy's descent to the goddess. Again, another stage. She's descending. This is very uniquely feminine, this descent, this darkness that needs to overtake a woman to really understand how she needs to show up in the world and integrate all of these aspects of herself. And there's Dorothy in the castle. She's been captured by the witch and threatened with death, and she's in the room waiting to die, so to speak. And in the crystal ball is Auntie M, crying for her, searching for her. And now Dorothy has an opportunity to heal the mother wound and reconcile with Auntie M, forgive her for what went on before she left Kansas. And subsequently, they're able to escape and kill the witch, throwing the water on the witch to save the Scarecrow. And that sets them off into this integration. And so when Dorothy arrives back in Oz, she has to do a little bit of healing the wounded masculine. She has to accept that the wizard isn't this magical guy and they're going to get in a balloon and go home. And again, Toto runs off in this, wild feminine way, doesn't follow the rules, follows instinct, gets distracted by something, and then Dorothy misses her ride. And now she's devastated. And here comes Glinda as her mentor, assuring her that she could have returned home anytime and she had the power within her the whole time. And the Scarecrow gets upset. Why didn't you tell her? And Glinda explains she wouldn't have believed me. She needed to go through this whole journey in order to really understand that. And Dorothy resolves how she felt when she sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Now she's resolving it and saying, oh, everything I ever needed was always in my own backyard, meaning, right, I am whole. I never needed to find this outside of myself. It's been in here all this time. And she arrives back home, integrated. Feminine and masculine is integrated now. She's being welcomed by her family, the farmhands, the magician, fortune teller, and she ends the movie by saying there's no place like home. And home is very representative of feminine energy, and she wants to be there now. She accepts that, and she's integrated both. She's had her whole adventure to move into this masculine space, descend to the goddess, find her connection to the feminine again, and now she's whole. And so we'll be referencing Dorothy and her story throughout the Goddess series because she'll allow us from a modern myth to enter the ancient myths and goddesses and have more access to the heroine's journey and relating to the ancient goddesses. So we begin, and next time we'll dive into a stage, separation of the feminine, and we'll be looking at Athena and talking about how Athena represents that. And I also am going to be I love all the Wizard of Oz stuff that's happening right now with Wicked, really bringing that back into the zeitgeist and that modern retelling, really accepting how much of a female story it is. And I'm actually going to be seeing the Wizard of Oz at the Sphere over Thanksgiving. I'll post about that, and I can't wait. I'm really excited to see it so revitalized and in a new way. So thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe and like so that you can see the next video that will come out next month. And I really appreciate your time.